A widowed father lives in silence since his son stopped speaking after the mother's death. But a new nanny awakens something unexpected when the boy smiles and speaks again. Between emotion and guilt, the father realizes that love can heal wounds deeper than time. The return of words reveals that sometimes caring is the true miracle. The curtains of the penthouse apartment in Bel Air remained almost always closed, as if the daylight itself were an unwelcome intrusion into that space marked by pain. Gregory Montgomery, 42, CEO of one of Los Angeles' largest construction companies, looked out the half-open window of his home office while speaking on the phone with one of his directors. Across the spacious apartment, his 6-year-old son, Peter, sat on the floor of his bedroom, playing alone with small building blocks. In absolute silence. Inform the committee that the San Diego Mall project will be approved, but I want to personally review the contracts before signing, Gregory instructed, ending yet another of the dozens of calls he made daily. Since the accident that took his wife Felicity 4 years ago, he had become even more obsessed with work. It was easier to deal with numbers, contracts, and negotiations than with the sepulchral silence of his son. Peter hadn't uttered a word since the fateful day an intoxicated driver collided with the car he and his mother were in. Felicity didn't survive, and Peter, who witnessed everything, plunged into a mutism that no specialist had managed to reverse. The private elevator door opened, and Victoria, Gregory's secretary, rushed in carrying folders and her tablet with the day's schedule. "Good morning, Gregory. The nanny candidate has arrived. She's waiting at the building's reception." Gregory checked his watch. "Already?" "She's early." His tone was one of surprise but also of discreet approval. In recent weeks, 3 nannies had passed through the apartment, and none had stayed more than a few days. All felt uncomfortable with the boy's silence, and with the demands of absolute discretion imposed by Christine Maxwell, Gregory's girlfriend. Yes, she arrived 20 minutes early. Mrs. Thompson from the agency spoke very highly of her, said she has experience with children. Special children. Victoria hesitated in her choice of words. "Peter isn't special, Victoria." Gregory's voice hardened momentarily. "He just isn't speaking right now." There was a thinly veiled vulnerability in the way he always corrected people about his son's condition. "Sorry, sir. Shall I call her up then?" Gregory nodded, adjusting his tie in an automatic gesture. Minutes later, the elevator opened again and Lucy Sterling entered the apartment. At 27, dressed simply but neatly, jeans, a white blouse and a light jacket, she displayed a warm smile that contrasted with the sobriety of the environment. Her curly hair was tied in an unpretentious bun, and her dark brown eyes showed a mixture of determination and kindness. "Good morning, Mr. Montgomery. I'm Lucy," she introduced herself, extending her hand with a firmness that surprised Gregory. "Good morning, Lucy. Shall we talk in the office?" he invited, guiding her through the spacious apartment decorated with minimalist elegance, a work by the prestigious architect Christine Maxwell, Gregory's current girlfriend, who made a point of controlling every detail of that environment, just as she did in all aspects of the businessman's life. On the way, Lucy noticed Peter sitting on the bedroom rug, absorbed in his colorful blocks, and smiled at him. The boy looked up for a moment, not returning the smile but with a subtle curiosity in his gaze. "Peter, this is Lucy. She'll be with you today, okay?" Gregory tried to sound cheerful, but there was a note of weariness in his voice, as if he were already prepared for another failed attempt. The boy merely returned to his blocks, without any visible reaction. In the office, Gregory quickly explained Peter's routine and specific needs: speech therapy appointments on Tuesdays, therapy sessions on Thursdays, controlled diet, strict schedules for each activity. He spoke of the accident only enough to provide context, without delving into painful details. "Peter, he understands everything. He's very intelligent. He just chooses not to speak. The doctors say it's a response to trauma," he explained, as if needing to defend his son. "He communicates by pointing or writing on his tablet." Lucy listened attentively, with an expression that showed no pity, something Gregory noticed and silently appreciated. "I understand, Mr. Montgomery. And what does he like to do? What are his interests?" The question caught Gregory off guard. The other nannies had asked about medications, limitations, emergency procedures. None had asked about Peter's likes. "Well, he He likes to build things, and he draws a lot. Gregory realized with slight discomfort that he couldn't fully answer that question. His routine is detailed in this folder. As she leafed through the meticulous instructions, Lucy noticed a playground across the street from the office window, vibrant with colors and movement. She saw how Peter, from his room, had a perfect view of that place full of children playing. Mr. Montgomery, it says here that Peter should not leave the apartment except for medical appointments. Yes, it's for safety. And he doesn't feel comfortable in open spaces with other children, Gregory explained, repeating what Christine always said. Has he ever shown discomfort, or was that a preventive decision? Lucy asked gently. Gregory hesitated. Christine, my girlfriend, is quite experienced in these matters. She researched a lot and believes Peter needs a controlled environment. Lucy nodded without commenting, but her gaze revealed that she was forming her own impressions. After the interview, Gregory introduced Lucy to the housekeeper, Mrs. Zelma, a southern lady of 60 who had cared for the house for over a decade and had a special affection for Peter. Before leaving for the office, Gregory said goodbye to his son with a kiss on the forehead, receiving only a silent look in return. Any problems? Call me, Gregory instructed Lucy. We'll talk about how the day went tonight. When Gregory left, Mrs. Zelma approached Lucy. Child, I'll tell you something, she whispered. This boy was a joy before that terrible day. He talked a mile a minute, sang, danced. The house was different. The housekeeper's eyes shone with suppressed tears. After Mrs. Felicity passed, it was as if the light went out, and when the boss started dating Mrs. Christine, she shook her head, leaving the sentence hanging. I understand, Lucy replied, realizing there was much more to the story than Gregory's formal summary. Throughout the morning, Lucy followed the established routine, but with small, subtle changes. Instead of just serving a snack in the room, as the folder indicated, she invited Peter to the kitchen. To her surprise, he followed her. As he ate in silence, Lucy organized some toys and noticed that the boy didn't take his eyes off the window. Following his gaze, she again saw the park, where children played happily. Would you like to go there someday, Peter? She asked, not expecting a response. To her surprise, the boy looked at her directly in the eyes for the first time, and after a moment of hesitation, made an almost imperceptible movement with his head, a slight positive nod. Lucy smiled. Maybe we can talk to your father about it. At that moment, the phone rang. It was Christine, wanting to check if everything was in order, and reminding Lucy that Peter shouldn't watch television before completing his scheduled educational activities. Everything's under control, Lucy assured her, observing Peter, who had returned to his contemplative state, staring fixedly at the park across the street. In his eyes, however, Lucy could see something that perhaps no one else had noticed in a long time. A wish, a desire, a silent longing that was just waiting for someone who knew how to interpret it. 3 weeks had passed since Lucy's arrival, and something subtle was beginning to change in the Montgomery apartment. It was as if a gentle breeze had entered through the always closed windows, bringing an aroma of possibilities. During that time, Lucy had carefully observed Peter's habits. She noticed how he spent hours at his bedroom window, watching the children in the park. She perceived his interest in adventure stories and how his eyes lit up when she mentioned animals, small discoveries that were not documented in any instruction folder. That Friday, Gregory arrived home early from work. He found Peter sitting at the kitchen table, drawing intently, while Lucy prepared a fresh juice. The scene of quiet domesticity caught him off guard. Since the accident, Peter rarely left his room voluntarily. How was your day? Gregory asked, loosening his tie. Productive, Lucy replied with a warm smile. Peter finished all his speech therapy activities, and we played a new association game. Gregory approached to see his son's drawing, a colorful representation of the park seen from the window with several children playing. In the corner of the paper, a small figure watched from afar, clearly representing Peter himself. He draws this park almost every day, Lucy commented carefully. Mr. Montgomery, I've been thinking, perhaps it would be good for Peter to go there, even if just for a few minutes. Gregory frowned. Christine thinks it's not appropriate. Too much stimulation might overwhelm him. With all due respect, Lucy continued, keeping her voice calm, Peter spends hours watching other children play, It seems there's a desire there. Gregory looked at his son, who kept his eyes fixed on the paper, but it was evident he was attentive to the conversation. I don't know. Lucy, the specialists recommended controlled environments. I understand your concerns, she replied. What if we started with a short visit at a quieter time? I'll be with him the whole time. Something in Lucy's confident tone made Gregory consider. At that moment, Peter looked up at his father, and there was a silent plea in his eyes that Gregory couldn't ignore. We can try, he finally conceded. But only for half an hour, and you call me if there's any problem. On Saturday morning, before Christine arrived for their scheduled lunch, Lucy prepared Peter for the small adventure. The boy seemed more alert, his movements showing a contained anxiety as she adjusted his jacket. We'll just observe today, okay? No pressure, Lucy explained, receiving an almost imperceptible nod in response. Gregory accompanied them to the building door, visibly tense. Half an hour, he reminded them. The park was just a block away. Upon arriving, Peter squeezed Lucy's hand tightly. His eyes scanned every detail: the red slide, the swing occupied by two laughing children, the seesaw where a mother gently pushed a small girl. How about we sit on that bench first? Lucy suggested. And we can just watch for a bit. Peter agreed, following her with hesitant steps. For 15 minutes, they just watched the other children. Lucy commented occasionally on the games, without forcing any reaction. Gradually, she felt the tension in the boy's hand decrease. That's the merry-go-round you always draw, isn't it? She pointed to a colorful toy where 3 children spun happily. Peter nodded, his eyes fixed on the circular movement. Want to take a closer look? She suggested. To Lucy's surprise, Peter promptly stood up. They approached the merry-go-round, now unoccupied, and Peter touched the metal bar with cautious curiosity. Want to try it? Lucy asked softly. The boy hesitated, looked around as if seeking permission, and then nodded yes. Carefully, Lucy helped him up and began to push slowly, observing his reactions intently. A smile, the first she had seen, began to form on Peter's face as the merry-go-round gained speed. It was a shy, almost secret smile, but undeniably real. Faster? Lucy asked. Peter's smile widened, his eyes shining with a joy that seemed too new, almost startling in its intensity. And then it happened. More! The word came out hoarse, almost a whisper, but unmistakably clear. Lucy froze for a second, her heart pounding. Disguising her surprise so as not to alarm the boy, she continued pushing. More! Peter repeated louder this time, his voice gaining confidence. An elderly lady passing with her grandson looked at them, smiling at the boy's evident joy. Your son is loving it, isn't he? She commented to Lucy. Yes, he is, she replied, without correcting the misconception, her eyes welling up. Lost in the magical moment, Lucy didn't notice the imposing figure approaching quickly along the park path. Gregory, who couldn't resist his anxiety and decided to check on them, arrived exactly as Peter happily shouted, Faster! More. Gregory stopped abruptly, stunned. For a moment, he thought he was hallucinating. His son's voice, that voice he hadn't heard in 4 years, sounded different, more mature but unmistakable. Peter, spotting his father, pointed enthusiastically. Dad, look at me spinning! Tears came instantly. Gregory approached, unable to hide his emotion. Peter jumped off the merry-go-round and for the first time in years ran into his father's arms. Can I play more, please? The words came out naturally, as if the silence had never existed. Gregory looked at Lucy, who watched the scene with a mixture of emotion and discretion, giving them space for that moment. There was gratitude in his gaze, but also something more. A painful realization of how much he had lost by not understanding what his son truly needed. Of course you can. Son, he replied with a choked voice, as long as you want. As Peter ran back to the merry-go-round, Gregory approached Lucy. How? That was all he could articulate. I think he just needed to feel like any other child, she replied simply. The park, the other children, all of it helped him reconnect with a part of himself that was dormant. At that moment, 2 children approached the merry-go-round, asking if they could play too. To Gregory's astonishment, Peter replied promptly, Yes, come on. Soon his son was spinning and laughing with other children, talking as if he had never stopped speaking. The naturalness was disconcerting. Good heavens, Gregory murmured, unable to take his eyes off the scene. All those specialists, treatments, therapies, and all it took was a trip to the park? Lucy smiled, understanding. It wasn't just the park, Mr. Montgomery. It was giving him the chance to decide when he was ready. Sometimes what a child needs most is to feel they have permission to just be a child. A girl of about 7 invited Peter to the slide, and he accepted immediately, bidding farewell to his new friends on the merry-go-round with surprising ease. He was never shy, Gregory commented, recalling. Before the accident, he talked to everyone. Felicity used to say he had a gift for making friends. Pronouncing his deceased wife's name still hurt, but at that moment, the pain was accompanied by an almost forgotten feeling. Pride. Gregory's phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was Christine. "I'm arriving at your apartment." "Where are you?" Her voice carried a note of irritation. "We're at the park nearby. Peter is playing," Gregory replied, watching his son slide happily. "At the park? Gregory, we talked about this. Too much stimulation isn't good for him. You know how he gets afterward." "Christine, you won't believe it," Gregory almost whispered, emotional. "Peter is talking." There was a pause on the other end of the line. What? What do you mean, talking?" "He just started talking. On the merry-go-round. You have to see, he's talking to other children right now." Another pause. "I'm coming over," Christine said finally, with an excitement that sounded a little forced. Gregory hung up and turned his attention back to Peter, who was now playing tag with 3 children, laughing and shouting with abandon. Beside him, Lucy smiled, keeping enough distance to give the boy autonomy, but close enough to convey security. At that instant, something changed within Gregory. A sudden shame washed over him, shame for having accepted that his son be treated as fragile when, in fact, he was much stronger than anyone imagined. And along with that shame came a feeling of profound gratitude to the young woman, who, with simplicity and intuition, had achieved what psychologists, speech therapists, and therapists had not been able to in years. "Thank you," he said to Lucy, the words insufficient to express what he felt. "I don't know how to thank you." Lucy shook her head. "No need, Mr. Montgomery, this is the reward." She pointed to Peter, running and laughing under the morning sun, finally living the childhood that had been denied to him for so long. Christine Maxwell arrived at the park with her usual air of calculated elegance. At 38, the award-winning interior architect maintained an impeccable appearance, perfectly aligned smooth, dark hair, a discreet but evidently expensive designer dress, and a posture that exuded control. When she spotted Gregory, her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Where is he?" she asked, completely ignoring Lucy. "Over there." "On the slide," Gregory replied, pointing to Peter, who was now queuing again to go up, chatting animatedly with a boy approximately his age. Christine observed the scene with an expression difficult to decipher, a mixture of surprise and something that could be interpreted as displeasure, quickly masked by enthusiasm. "Oh, it truly is amazing," she exclaimed, turning to Gregory. "But he seems so agitated. I don't know if so much stimulation at once is healthy." "He's just playing, Christine," Gregory replied, a defensive note in his voice. "Look at him, he's happy." Peter, noticing his father's girlfriend's presence, momentarily diminished his enthusiasm. He came down the slide and approached with more restrained steps. "Hi, Aunt Christine," he said, his voice slightly hesitant. Christine knelt, with a smile that was too wide. "Peter, what a wonderful surprise to hear you speak. But I think you've played enough for today, haven't you? You must be tired. How about we go home? I brought that chocolate cake you like." Peter looked at his father, then at Lucy, and then at the children who were still playing. "Can I stay a little longer, please?" Before Gregory could answer, Christine intervened. "Darling, too much excitement might not be good for special children like you. We need to take it easy." "I'm not special," Peter replied promptly, surprising everyone. "I just wasn't talking." An uncomfortable silence settled. Gregory, visibly embarrassed by Christine's comment, placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Peter can stay for 20 more minutes," he decided. "Then we'll go home together." Christine's expression hardened for a second, but she quickly regained her composure. "Of course, dear. Whatever you think is best." Peter smiled and ran back to the other children, leaving the 3 adults in a silence heavy with unverbalized tensions. "The nanny could excuse us for a moment?" Christine asked, looking Lucy up and down. "Certainly, madam." I'll stay closer to Peter, Lucy replied politely, moving away to where the boy was playing. As soon as Lucy was out of earshot, Christine turned to Gregory. I can't believe you brought Peter to a public place without consulting me, she said, maintaining a fixed smile on her lips for anyone observing them from afar. You know I advocate for a gradual and controlled reintroduction. It was an impulse decision, Chris, and look at the result. He's talking. Exactly. Such a drastic, sudden change. That's not healthy, Gregory. We need to monitor carefully. Abrupt behavioral changes can indicate emotional instability. Gregory frowned. He's happy, Christine, for the first time in years. What seems like happiness might just be momentary euphoria. I've seen it before in other cases. Christine spoke with the authority of someone with specialized knowledge, though her background was in architecture, not child psychology. Can we at least celebrate this today? Please, Gregory asked, tired. It's a miracle, Chris. My son is talking again. Christine softened her expression and touched Gregory's face with studied tenderness. Of course, my love. I'm just worried, as always. She looked towards Lucy, who was pushing Peter on the swing. Was it her idea to bring him here? Yes, she noticed Peter spent hours watching the park from the window. Interesting, Christine murmured. Did you check her credentials? I mean, really check them? The agency did. Why? Nothing, just a nanny making decisions about a child's mental health without consulting specialists. Seems a bit presumptuous, don't you think? Before Gregory could answer, Peter came running, interrupting the conversation. Dad! Dad! Raphael has a poodle. Can I have a dog too, please? Gregory laughed, genuinely delighted by his son's enthusiasm, but Christine quickly intervened. Peter, darling, you know you have allergies. An animal at home would be complicated. But I've never had allergies, Peter protested. The doctor mentioned allergic tendencies at your last checkup, Christine stated with conviction. Gregory frowned, not remembering such a comment, but preferred to avoid conflict at that special moment. We can talk about it later, son. For now, how about enjoying your last few minutes at the park? On the way back to the apartment, Peter talked non-stop about the slide, about Raphael and his poodle named Popcorn, about wanting to go back the next day to ride the small roller coaster. Although Lucy had explained he wasn't tall enough yet. But when I grow bigger, I'll ride it. And also that Ferris wheel at the big park, Griffith Park, he chattered, as if wanting to make up for all the years of silence. Lucy, have you ever ridden the big roller coaster? The one that goes upside down? Yes, Peter, it's very exciting, she replied, exchanging a look of contained joy with Gregory. Christine walked slightly ahead, stiffly, checking messages on her phone with exaggerated frequency. Upon arriving at the apartment, Peter continued his enthusiastic narrative, now for Mrs. Zelma, who couldn't hold back tears, hearing the boy speak again. Good heavens, it's a miracle! A true miracle, exclaimed the housekeeper, hugging the boy who excitedly described the ball pit he had seen at the park. During lunch, the normally silent table was filled with Peter's voice. He recounted and re-recounted every detail of the outing, while Gregory listened fascinated, as if every word were a treasure. And can you believe it, Dad? Raphael has a dog named Popcorn. I want a dog too, but I don't want to call it Popcorn. I want to call it Thunder. Thunder, that's a strong name for a dog, Gregory commented, laughing. Because he'll be strong and brave, Peter explained seriously. Christine cleared her throat. Peter, darling, you're eating too fast. Remember what the doctor said about chewing slowly. Peter slowed down momentarily, but soon returned to talking about the other children at the park and how a boy had invited him to his birthday the following week. Really? Gregory asked, surprised. Yes, Luke. He lives in the building on the corner and is turning 7. Can I go, Dad, please? Well, we need to meet his parents first, but... Gregory, Christine interrupted, I think it's too early for parties. Peter has just started talking again. He needs to adapt gradually. Lucy, who was serving Peter juice, commented discreetly. The boy seemed very kind, and his mother was nearby. We exchanged contacts. Christine shot Lucy a sharp look. I don't recall asking for your opinion on Peter's social interactions. An awkward silence fell over the table. Peter looked from one adult to another, sensing the tension. Christine, Gregory said in a warning tone. Sorry, she replied coldly. I just think important decisions should be made by you and the specialists, not by the employee. Lucy helped me talk again, Peter declared unexpectedly, looking directly at Christine. She's nice. Christine stiffened but forced a smile. Of course she is, darling. We just need to make sure we're following medical guidelines. Gregory, trying to ease the tension, changed the subject. So, Peter, want to show Christine that drawing you made yesterday? After lunch, while Peter took his nap, surprisingly exhausted after so much activity and conversation, Christine asked to speak with Gregory privately in the office. We need to talk about this nanny, she began as soon as the door closed. What about her? It was thanks to her that Peter started talking again, Gregory defended. That's exactly what worries me. She's forming a dangerous emotional bond with Peter. Did you see how he defends her? How he talks about her? She's blurring professional boundaries. Christine, she just did her job, and very well, by the way. No, Gregory, she overstepped her role by making decisions about your son's mental health without consulting specialists. Taking Peter to the park without proper preparation was irresponsible. But it worked, he insisted, for now. But what if Peter has a relapse? What if this progress is temporary? Will you blame her when he returns to silence? Doubt flashed in Gregory's eyes for an instant. I think we should limit her involvement to basic care tasks, Christine continued, sensing his hesitation, and resume the original plan for gradual reintroduction to social activities. Maybe even seek a professional opinion on this sudden development. You want me to consult someone because my son started talking again? Gregory asked, incredulous. I want you to consult someone because your son underwent a dramatic behavioral change in a matter of hours, and that could have implications none of us are prepared to deal with, Christine replied firmly. You are responsible. Gregory sighed, running a hand through his hair. Part of him wanted to just celebrate the miracle he had witnessed. But Christine's words planted seeds of doubt. What if she was right? What if there were consequences he, in his excitement, wasn't considering? I'll think about it, he finally said. But for today, I just want to celebrate that my son is talking again. Can we do that? Christine nodded, satisfied that she had planted the necessary doubts. Of course, my love. I only want the best for both of you. You know that. When they left the office, they found Lucy tidying up some toys in the living room. Christine shot her a cold glance before heading to Peter's room, supposedly to check if he was still sleeping. Gregory approached Lucy. Thank you for what you did today, he said in a low voice. Regardless of anything else, seeing Peter talking again, I have no words to express what that means to me. Lucy smiled, genuinely happy. He's a wonderful boy, Mr. Montgomery. He always had a voice. He just needed to feel safe to use it again. At that moment, Christine returned to the living room, the sound of her high heels on the hardwood floor announcing her presence, even before she was seen. Her gaze registered the proximity between Gregory and Lucy, and something cold and calculating gleamed in her eyes. Peter is still sleeping soundly, she informed them. Probably all this. Agitation exhausted him. She emphasized the word agitation as if it were a negative thing. Gregory, I just remembered I have that dinner with clients tonight. You're coming with me, right? So I was thinking of staying with Peter today, especially after what happened. He'll be sleeping, darling. And you yourself said we need to continue our normal lives. It's not good to show Peter that everything has suddenly changed. Christine argued with the impeccable logic she always used to get what she wanted. Gregory hesitated, torn between the desire to be present for his son and the rationality of Christine's arguments. Lucy can stay later, can't she? He asked, looking at the nanny. Of course, no problem, Lucy replied promptly. Resolved then, Christine declared with a victorious smile. I'll go home to get ready and be back to pick you up at 7. When Christine left, Gregory looked at Lucy with an apologetic expression. Sorry about the tension, Christine is just being protective. Lucy nodded diplomatically. I understand, Mr. Montgomery. We all want the best for Peter. What Gregory didn't see was the determined look in Lucy's eyes. She had recognized exactly the type of manipulation Christine was exerting, the type she herself had witnessed in her own family during childhood. And she was determined not to let that controlling woman stifle Peter's newfound voice. In the weeks following Peter's rediscovery of his voice, the Montgomery apartment gained a new dynamic. The boy's joy was contagious. He hummed as he dressed, told stories during breakfast, asked questions about everything. It was as if he were trying to reclaim every second of the 4 years of silence. Gregory had also changed. He came home earlier from work, spent less time locked in his office, and frequently took his son out on weekends, to the park, the zoo, ice cream parlors. There was a lightness in his gestures, a renewed sparkle in his eyes that did not go, unnoticed by those who knew him. However, as father and son grew closer, Christine intensified her subtle tactics of control and manipulation. One Tuesday afternoon, Peter had returned from his speech therapy session, overflowing with enthusiasm. The therapist was impressed with his progress and suggested reducing appointments to once a month. "She said I'm speaking super well," Peter told Lucy as they entered the building's elevator, "and that I can be discharged from sessions at the end of the year." "That's wonderful, Peter," Lucy replied, genuinely happy. Upon entering the apartment, they found Christine sitting in the living room, flipping through decorating magazines. Her unannounced presence caused a brief tension. In recent days, she had been showing up unannounced, always at different times. "Hi, dears," she greeted with a calculated smile. "How was the session?" "It was great. Dr. Paula said I might be discharged soon." Christine's smile flickered for a millisecond. "That's interesting news, but I don't think it's wise to interrupt treatment so early. I'll talk to your father about it." Peter looked at Lucy, confused. "But the doctor said I'm fine." "Doctors are sometimes too optimistic, darling," Christine replied, her tone condescending. "Adults need to make more cautious decisions." Peter's enthusiasm visibly wilted. Lucy, noticing this, intervened. "Peter, how about we show your dad the certificate Dr. Paula gave you today?" "Yes." The animation returned to the boy's face. "I'll put it in my special drawer." As Peter ran to his room, Christine shot Lucy a frosty glare. "You are once again overstepping your boundaries," she said in a controlled voice. "It's not up to you to decide which medical information should be emphasized for Peter. I merely supported what the speech therapist herself said." "Ms. Maxwell," Lucy replied calmly. "It just so happens that I've known Dr. Paula for years. I'm going to call her to understand this rushed diagnosis. Peter still shows hesitations in speech and occasionally reverts to silence when stressed." The English slipped purposefully into her speech, a subtle way of demonstrating superiority. "Interesting," Lucy commented. "I haven't noticed these behaviors you mention." "Of course you haven't. You're only with him during the good moments. You don't see how he gets after too much stimulation." Christine adjusted her white gold bracelet. "I've already spoken with Gregory about reducing outings and resuming the structured routine." At that moment, Mrs. Zelmer entered the room, bringing a tray with coffee. The housekeeper, who had never hidden her preference for Lucy over Christine, gave the nanny a meaningful look. "Your coffee, as you asked," Mrs. Zelmer said with exaggerated formality. "Peter is in his room assembling that new puzzle." "Thank you, Zelmer." Christine took the cup without looking at the housekeeper. "You may excuse us now." After Mrs. Zelmer left, Christine turned to Lucy. "I think we need to clarify a few things. Peter is not your son. You are a temporary employee in this house, paid to perform specific tasks, not to form emotional bonds or make decisions about his health." Lucy maintained her calm posture, though she felt her heart racing. "My job is to care for Peter's well-being. That includes supporting his development and celebrating his progress." Christine gave a cold smile. "Your job is to follow the instructions in the folder Gregory gave you on the first day. Instructions which, by the way, I helped prepare based on the recommendations of the best specialists. With all due respect, Ms. Maxwell, many of those instructions are outdated now that Peter has started talking again and is interacting socially." Christine's face hardened. "Do you really believe that a few weeks of progress erase years of trauma? Peter isn't cured because he took a few steps forward. He continues to be a child who needs structure and clear boundaries." Before Lucy could respond, they heard the elevator door open. Gregory entered, looking tired but with a smile on his face. "Hi," he greeted, surprised to see Christine. "I didn't know you were coming today." "Wanted to surprise you," she replied, getting up to kiss him. "I was just talking to Lucy about some concerns I have." "What concerns?" he asked, frowning. "Dad!" Peter's cheerful voice interrupted the conversation. The boy came running from the bedroom area, holding a colorful paper. "Look what Dr. Paula gave me today. A certificate of excellence." Gregory examined the certificate with genuine admiration. "Wow, that's amazing, son. I'm so proud." "She said I'm speaking so well that soon I won't even need to go to sessions anymore." Gregory looked at Lucy, who nodded in confirmation. "This deserves a celebration, doesn't it?" he suggested, animated. "Actually," Christine intervened, "I was just telling Lucy that we should be cautious. These rushed discharges can give Peter a false sense of security. What if he has a relapse?" The joy on the boy's face diminished. "Relapse?" Gregory questioned. "Chris, he's doing incredibly well. All the specialists are surprised by his progress." "Exactly why we need to be careful," she insisted. "Too rapid progress can be unstable. I suggest we keep all therapies for at least 6 more months." Peter looked at his father, then at the certificate in his hands, disappointment evident on his face. "You know what?" Gregory said, crouching down to his son's level. "Let's do this. We'll continue with Dr. Polifer now, but less often, as she suggested. And each month we'll assess how you're doing. What do you think?" The smile returned to Peter's face. "Okay. Can I show my certificate to Mrs. Zelma now?" "Of course you can, champ." When Peter left, Gregory turned to Christine. "Can we discuss this later? I don't want to diminish his achievement." "It's precisely this kind of impulsive decision that worries me, Gregory," she replied, her voice tense. "You're letting momentary enthusiasm cloud your judgment." "Or maybe I'm finally seeing things clearly," he retorted, a touch of firmness in his voice that surprised both Christine and Lucy. The next morning, Christine appeared again, this time bringing a folder with articles about relapses in children with selective mutism and dangers of premature treatment. Interruption. Gregory listened patiently in his office but maintained his position. Frustrated by her boyfriend's unexpected resistance, Christine changed tactics. Instead of trying to convince Gregory, she began to work directly to undermine Peter's trust in Lucy. One afternoon, when she picked the boy up from school, something she never did, Christine started a seemingly casual conversation. "You like Lucy a lot, don't you, Peter?" "Yes, she's super nice. You know, she promised to teach me how to rollerblade." That's good." Christine paused thoughtfully. "You know, darling, sometimes nannies promise things because it's their job to make children happy." Peter looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "Well, they're paid to take care of you and make you happy. It's their job." Christine chose each word carefully. "But then when they find another job, they leave." "Is Lucy leaving?" Peter's voice trembled slightly. "All nannies leave eventually. It's normal. That's why we can't get too attached to them." Upon arriving at the apartment, Peter was strangely quiet. When Lucy greeted him animatedly, he responded in monosyllables and went straight to his room. Worried, Lucy followed him. "Is everything okay, Peter? Did something happen at school?" The boy looked at her with teary eyes. "Are you leaving?" The question caught Lucy by surprise. "Why are you asking that?" "Aunt Christine said all nannies leave someday." Lucy felt a wave of indignation, but kept calm for Peter. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked into his eyes. "Peter, I don't have any plans to leave. I like you and your father very much, and I love working here." "Promise you won't?" he insisted, his voice small. Lucy hesitated. As a professional, she knew she shouldn't make promises she might not be able to keep. But the fear in Peter's eyes was real, and she recognized Christine's manipulation. "I promise I'll do everything I can to stay with you." "Peter, and even if one day I need to work somewhere else, I'll never stop caring about you." "That's a promise I can make for sure." Peter hugged her tightly, and Lucy felt a lump in her throat. Inside, she feared Christine was setting her up to be fired. In the days that followed, Christine intensified her campaign. She began to criticize Lucy on small details: the outfit she chose for Peter, not suitable for the weather; the scattered toys, lack of organization, even the way the nanny helped the boy with schoolwork. "You're doing it for him, not teaching." These criticisms were always made in front of other people: Gregory, Mrs. Zelma, the driver, sometimes even other parents when they picked Peter up from school. It was a calculated strategy to gradually diminish Lucy in everyone's eyes. One particularly tense evening, after Peter had gone to sleep, Mrs. Zelma found Lucy in the kitchen, preparing the lunchbox for the next day. "Child," the housekeeper said in a low voice, "I need to tell you something." "What is it, Mrs. Zelma?" "There tildi demas that." Woman is doing everything to get you out of here. Just today I heard her on the phone with a friend saying that the nanny is causing problems and that she will resolve it soon. Lucy sighed. I noticed. She doesn't like the bond I have with Peter. It's not just that, Mrs. Zelmer replied, looking around to make sure they were alone. Since you arrived, the boy and the boss have started smiling again. Mr. Montgomery is rediscovering the joy of being a father, and that threatens the control she wants to have over both of them. What do you think I should do? Hold firm for now. Mr. Montgomery isn't foolish, he's just confused. But he'll see eventually. The housekeeper squeezed Lucy's shoulder affectionately. That woman doesn't like children. Never did. She wants Peter in boarding school until he's 18. She said that several times when she thinks no one is listening. For her, the boy is an obstacle to her plans with the boss. That night, Lucy had trouble sleeping. In her small apartment in Boyle Heights, shared with her mother who had worked as a housekeeper for decades, she confided her anguish. Mom, I'm falling in love with my boss, she finally admitted, putting into words what she had been feeling for weeks. And I love that boy as if he were my own. Mrs. Janet, a simple woman of great wisdom, looked at her daughter with understanding. Daughter, the heart doesn't choose social position to love. But be careful. Rich men like him live in another world. And that girlfriend of his won't give up easily. She's so manipulative, Mum. She uses Peter as a pawn in a game of control. And the worst part is she's trying to make me look incompetent. Those rich, empty women are like that. They're afraid of losing what they've gained. And you, my daughter, represent a threat. Mrs. Janet adjusted a strand of Lucy's hair. Just remember one thing, maintain your dignity. If he is to love you, let it be for the woman you are, not for the convenient employee. The next day, the tension reached a new level. Christine appeared early, informing them that she had scheduled a review with Peter's pediatrician. Review? But he wasn't sick, Gregory questioned, confused. It's preventative, she replied promptly. I want to make sure all this recent enthusiasm isn't causing stress to his system. Peter, who overheard the conversation, protested. I don't want to go to the doctor. I'm fine. You see, resistance. That's one of the signs of childhood anxiety I read about, Christine told Gregory as if proving a point. Reluctantly, Peter ended up going to the appointment accompanied by Christine and Gregory. Lucy, who normally accompanied him to doctors, was expressly excused from this commitment. When they returned, Christine seemed strangely frustrated. The consultation had revealed nothing. Peter was physically healthy, and the doctor had even praised his progress. That doctor is very superficial, she grumbled to Gregory. I'm going to get a second opinion from a real specialist. But Gregory, for the first time, showed clear irritation. Enough, Christine. We're looking for problems where none exist. Peter is fine. Talking, playing, interacting normally. Why do you insist on pathologizing every sign of his joy? The question hung in the air, laden with implications. Christine, realizing she had gone too far, strategically retreated. I'm just being cautious, darling. I don't want you to suffer if... There's a disappointment. But the seed of doubt had been planted, not in Gregory as she intended, but in him about her. For the first time since they started dating, Gregory looked at Christine and wondered if he really knew her. The tension in the Montgomery apartment grew daily. Christine intensified her presence, often appearing without prior notice and modifying Peter's routine with new medical recommendations that never came with official documentation. One Wednesday morning, Lucy was helping Peter get dressed for school when the boy made a disturbing revelation. Aunt Christine said, "You don't really like me," he commented casually as he buttoned his uniform shirt. Lucy froze. What? When did she say that? Thursday tied you yesterday when you thought I was sleeping. She told Dad you only pretend to like me because of the money. Indignation made Lucy's blood boil, but she kept calm for Peter. She knelt, getting to the boy's height. And do you believe that? Peter looked her in the eyes, serious. No, you took me to the park when no one else wanted to. You didn't pretend. That innocent trust broke Lucy's heart. She knelt, getting to the boy's height. Peter, I care about you very much. Never doubt that, okay? The boy nodded and hugged her spontaneously. At that moment, Christine entered the room without knocking. What's going on here? She asked, her tone falsely casual. Lucy was helping me get ready, Peter replied, pulling away from the hug. Interesting. You're 7, Peter. You should be able to dress yourself, don't you think? Christine looked at Lucy with a malicious smile. Unless someone is encouraging dependency. I dress myself, Peter protested. Lucy was just helping me with the buttons because I'm in a hurry. Of course, darling. Christine's tone was condescending. I'm just concerned about your development. Independence is important, you know. Lucy took a deep breath, controlling her rising anger. Peter is progressing very well in all areas, Miss Maxwell, including independence. Good to hear that. By the way, since everything is under control, can you excuse us? I need to talk to Peter about something private. Reluctantly, Lucy left the room, but stayed close enough to hear the conversation. Peter, darling, Christine began in a confidential tone, you know your father and I are thinking of all living together soon, don't we? It would be wonderful, the 3 of us as a real family. What about Lucy? Peter asked immediately. Well, when I move in here, we won't need a nanny anymore. You'll have me to take care of you. But I want Lucy. Peter's voice rose an octave. Don't be silly, Peter. Nannies come and go. Family is forever, and soon I'll be your new mother. Lucy felt her heart clench as she heard a muffled sob from Peter. Without thinking twice, she re-entered the room. Peter is almost late for school, she said firmly. The driver is already waiting. The boy's face was red, eyes watery. Christine maintained a neutral expression, as if nothing had happened. Of course, school is a priority, she replied, adjusting her perfectly styled hair. We'll continue our conversation later, Peter. As soon as Christine left, Peter hugged Lucy tightly. I don't want you to leave, he whispered. Don't worry about that now, she consoled, feeling helpless. Let's focus on your day, okay? Today you have music class, which you love. During the ride to school, Peter remained quiet, lost in thought. As he said goodbye, he looked at Lucy with a seriousness that didn't match his 7 years. You'll be here when I get back, right? Yes, Peter, I promise. Upon returning to the apartment, Lucy found Christine settled on the living room sofa, working on her laptop. The architect looked up, her gaze calculating. Good, you're back, Lucy. We need to talk. Lucy remained standing, silently refusing the implicit invitation to sit. About what, Miss Maxwell? About professional boundaries. Christine closed her laptop with a precise movement. You're confusing your role in this house. You're creating unrealistic expectations in Peter and perhaps in other people too. I'm just doing my job, taking care of him. Caring, yes, not replacing parental figures or creating emotional dependency. Christine stood up, assuming an intimidating posture. Peter was improving gradually with the method we established before your arrival. With all due respect, Miss Maxwell, Peter was not improving. He remained silent for 4 years. And you think a miracle cure after a visit to the park is healthier? Christine laughed dismissively. What he needs is structure, not emotional indulgence. Lucy kept her voice calm but firm. What he needs is to feel loved and safe to be a child again. The problem, Lucy, is that you're overstepping professional boundaries in more ways than one. Christine's tone became threatening. I've noticed how you look at Gregory, how you seek his approval. It's inappropriate. Lucy's face burned. My relationship with Mr. Montgomery is strictly professional. Glad we understand each other, Christine smiled coldly, because it would be a shame if he needed to know about certain impressions I've had about your behavior. The threat hung in the air. Before Lucy could respond, the sound of the elevator announced someone's arrival. To both their surprise, it was Gregory, who normally didn't come home in the middle of the day. Gregory, Christine exclaimed, quickly adjusting her expression to a welcoming smile. What a wonderful surprise. I forgot some documents, he explained, noticing the tension in the room. Is everything all right here? Perfectly fine, Christine replied. I was just clarifying some routine matters with Lucy. Gregory looked from one to the other, suspicious. Lucy, any problem? Hesitantly, Lucy weighed her options. Exposing the situation could result in her dismissal, especially if Christine manipulated the narrative. On the other hand, Peter's well-being was at stake. Mr. Montgomery, she began, but was interrupted by Gregory's phone. He answered quickly. It was Peter's school. The boy had gotten into an argument with another student and was very upset, asking to go home. I'm on my way, Gregory replied, hanging up. Peter had a problem at school. What happened? The two women asked in unison. They didn't explain it properly. It seems he argued with a classmate and is crying a lot. I'm going to pick him up. I'll go with you, Christine offered promptly. No need, Chris, I'll handle it. I insist. Peter needs a female presence right now. Lucy swallowed her frustration. If you'll allow me, Mr. Montgomery, may I accompany you? Peter might feel more comfortable, since he's used to me with school routines. Gregory looked from one to the other, clearly uncomfortable with the latent tension. Lucy's right, Christine. She knows the school dynamics better. Christine's expression hardened momentarily, but she regained her composure. Of course, as you prefer. I'll be here when you return. In the car on the way to school, Gregory seemed worried. Peter has never been in trouble before. Children who are processing complex emotions sometimes have difficulty expressing them appropriately, Lucy commented, especially after long periods of silence. Gregory looked at her with appreciation. You really understand children, don't you? I try to understand Peter, she replied simply. At school, they found the boy in the coordinator's office, eyes red from crying. Seeing his father and Lucy, he ran to hug them. What happened, son? Gregory asked, worried. Between sobs, Peter explained. A classmate had called him weird for being mute for so long and said his mother had died because he wasn't normal. And I got so angry, Dad, Peter sobbed. I told him he was stupid and pushed him. Gregory hugged his son tightly. Oh, Peter, I'm so sorry you went through that. The coordinator explained that the other boy had already been reprimanded and that his parents would be called for a talk. On the way back, Peter, already calmer, said something that caught both of them off guard. Dad, Aunt Christine said Lucy is leaving when she moves into our apartment. Is that true? Gregory frowned, glancing quickly at Lucy in the rearview mirror. Who said that? Aunt Christine. She said she's going to be my new mom and we won't need a nanny. A heavy silence filled the car. Lucy kept her eyes fixed on the window, feeling her face burn. Peter, no one is going to replace your mother, Gregory said finally, his voice controlled. And no decision has been made about Lucy or about Christine moving in. Upon arriving at the apartment, they found Christine in the living room, seemingly working, but clearly waiting for them. Seeing Peter, she opened her arms theatrically. My darling, I was so worried. Come here and give Auntie a hug. To her surprise, Peter walked past her, ignoring the gesture. I'm going to my room, he announced, looking meaningfully at his father. Go ahead, son. Rest a bit. Lucy will prepare a snack for you in a little while. When Peter walked away, Christine dropped her mask of concern. What's wrong with him? He's been so ill-mannered lately. Christine, Gregory's voice was dangerously calm. We need to talk in the office, now. The door had barely closed when Gregory confronted his girlfriend. Did you tell my son you're going to replace his mother? Christine recoiled, surprised by his directness. Of course not. Not in that way. I merely commented that when our relationship progresses, we'll form a family. And about letting Lucy go. Gregory, be realistic. When I move in, which is the natural next step, it doesn't make sense to keep a full-time nanny. It would be redundant and confusing for Peter. Confusing how? His voice was tense. Peter is developing an unhealthy attachment to her. Did you see how he reacted when I offered a hug? He prefers her to me, and that's not healthy for the future family relationship we want to build. Gregory ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Peter likes her because she helped him when he needed it most. It was Lucy who managed to get him to talk again, Chris. And now that he's talking, we need to re-establish the correct roles. You're the father, I'll be the maternal figure, and she's an employee. Temporary. The calculated coldness in Christine's tone made Gregory look at her as if seeing her for the first time. Do you really care about Peter's well-being, or just about controlling this situation? He asked directly. How can you ask that? Everything I've done for the past 3 years was to help you take care of him. By controlling every aspect of his life, limiting his interactions, pathologizing every expression of his joy. Christine adjusted her posture, realizing she was losing ground. Gregory, you're letting that nanny manipulate your perception. I've noticed how she looks at you, how she tries to insinuate herself. It's so obvious she's interested in more than just the job. The accusation hung in the air for a few seconds. Gregory observed the woman in front of him. Elegant, sophisticated, controlling, and suddenly many pieces began to fall into place in his mind. You're jealous, he concluded, almost surprised by the realization. Not just of Lucy, but of Peter too, of the space he occupies in my life. That's ridiculous. Christine raised her voice for the first time. I'm just trying to protect our relationship and the future we've planned together. A gentle knock on the door interrupted the discussion. It was Lucy. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Montgomery, but Peter is asking for you. He seems quite upset. Thank you, Lucy, I'll be right there. When she moved away, Christine scoffed. See? Always interfering, always getting between us. Gregory stared at her, suddenly exhausted by the game. Christine, I need to take care of my son now. We'll continue this conversation later. No, Gregory. We'll settle this now. I want you to choose. Either she leaves this house today or I leave your life. The ultimatum caught Gregory by surprise. For a moment he just stared at Christine, processing what he had just heard. Then, with a calm that surprised them both, he replied, If that's how you're putting it, I think we already have our answer. Christine's face contorted in disbelief. You're choosing some random nanny over 3 years of relationship? I'm choosing my son's peace and happiness, and my own sanity. Gregory opened the office door. Please leave my house, Christine. You'll regret this, she hissed, picking up her purse. That woman is manipulating both of you. In the hallway, Peter watched the scene with wide eyes, Lucy just behind him, equally surprised by the abrupt outcome. As she passed them, Christine shot a venomous glare. Congratulations, you got what you wanted. I hope you're satisfied with destroying a family. You were never my family, Peter replied with disconcerting frankness. You always thought I was weird. Christine paled, glancing quickly at Gregory, who was now beside his son. I heard you talking on the phone, Peter continued. You said I was a problem and a burden. I pretended I was asleep, but I heard everything. Cornered, Christine abandoned all pretense. You have no idea what it's like to deal with a damaged child, Gregory. The sacrifice I made trying to help, while you were too busy to notice what was really happening. Get out, Gregory repeated, his voice trembling with contained anger. Now, when the elevator finally closed its doors, taking Christine away, a heavy silence fell over the apartment. Peter looked at his father, anxious. Is she coming back? He asked in a low voice. No, son, she's not. And Lucy, is she staying? Gregory looked at the nanny, who seemed as surprised as they were by recent events. If she wants to... I'm staying, Lucy replied quickly, smiling at Peter. I'll stay as long as you need me. Later that night, after Peter fell asleep, Gregory found Lucy in the living room, organizing toys before leaving. I wanted to thank you, he said. Not just for what you did today, but for everything since you arrived here. I just did my job, Mr. Montgomery. No, Lucy. You did much more. You gave my son his voice back when all the specialists failed. You saw what he needed when I was too blind to see. Lucy felt her heart race with his proximity and the vulnerability in his voice. Peter is an amazing boy, she replied softly. He just needed someone to believe he could be a normal child. And what about Christine's accusations? About you? Having feelings for me? The question came out hesitant, almost shy. Lucy felt her face burn. Mr. Montgomery, please call me Gregory. Their eyes met, and something indefinable passed between them. Recognition, perhaps, that they had weathered a storm together and found something unexpected on the other side. Gregory, she tried the name, feeling suddenly vulnerable. I think it would be inappropriate to discuss this now. He nodded, respecting the boundaries she set. You're right, of course. I just wanted you to know that I'm seeing things more clearly now, and I thank you for that too. When Lucy left the building that night, walking to the bus stop that would take her back to her modest neighborhood, she felt simultaneously exhausted and strangely light. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, there was hope for Peter, for Gregory, and perhaps for herself. The days following Christine's dramatic departure were paradoxically both quieter and more complicated. In the Montgomery apartment, the atmosphere had become lighter. Peter was visibly more relaxed, talking without reservations and filling the previously silent spaces with his childish chatter and spontaneous laughter. For Lucy, however, the situation had become more complex. The unexpected confrontation and the veiled admission of feelings created a new dynamic between her and Gregory, a subtle tension, laden with unverbalized possibilities. One morning, while helping Peter organize his backpack for school, the boy made a disconcerting observation. "You and Dad are weird," he commented casually, as he put away his pencil case. "Weird how?" Lucy asked, trying to sound neutral. "You keep looking at each other when you think no one's watching, and Dad gets all flustered when you come into the room." Peter stared at her with that uncomfortable, childish perceptiveness. "Did you two fight?" "No, Peter, of course not." "Then why does he call you Ms. Sterling again instead of Lucy? And why don't you have dinner with us anymore?" The questions were spot on. In recent days, both Lucy and Gregory had reverted to a professional formality that hadn't existed before, an awkward attempt to establish appropriate boundaries while navigating complicated feelings. "It's just a way to keep things organized," Lucy replied inadequately. "Your father is my boss, remember?" Peter shrugged. "It's boring. It was nicer before." That afternoon, Gregory called Lucy for a conversation in his office. His expression was serious, almost worried. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," he began, gesturing vaguely. "About Peter, about what happened, about us." Lucy's heart raced at the us, but she maintained a neutral expression. "I understand. I think we need to professionalize our relationship," Gregory continued, the words sounding rehearsed. "As much as I value what you did for Peter, we can't confuse things. For his sake." The disappointment was like a punch to the stomach, but Lucy nodded. "Of course, I completely agree." So Gregory seemed uncomfortable. "From now on, it would be good if we maintained a strictly professional relationship. No dinners together, no long personal conversations after Peter falls asleep." "As you wish, Mr. Montgomery." Something flashed in his eyes. Regret. But it was quickly masked. "Thank you for understanding." The following week, the atmosphere in the house had changed again. A rigid formality settled in, with Lucy limiting herself to what was necessary in her interactions with Gregory. Peter, sensitive as always, noticed the change and reacted with growing uneasiness. "Why are you two like this?" he asked openly during dinner, looking from one adult to another. "Is it because of Aunt Christine?" "She left, didn't she?" "Peter, that's not a matter for children," Gregory replied, surprising both his son and Lucy with the harshness of his tone. The boy lowered his head, hurt. Later, when Lucy was putting him to bed, he made a confession that broke her heart. "You know, when I'm near you, I remember Mum," he said softly. "Not her face, because I was little, but the way she took care of me, her smell, her hug." His eyes shone in the dim light of the room. "I think Mum would have liked you." "Why?" Lucy asked, her voice choked. "Because you make me happy." And she always wanted me to be happy. The next morning, Lucy made a difficult decision. She spoke with Gregory and asked for a few days off. She needed time to organize her thoughts and emotions. Reluctantly, he agreed. Those days away were painful for everyone. Peter constantly asked when Lucy would return, and Gregory found himself torn between what he considered the right thing and what his heart desired. For Lucy, the period of separation was a time for reflection. In her small apartment in Boyle Heights, she talked at length with her mother about the situation. "I can't go on like this, Mom," she confided. "I'm falling in love with my boss and loving that boy as if he were my own. But he made it clear he wants distance." Mrs. Janet sighed, understanding. "Daughter, that man is scared. He lost his wife, almost lost his son to silence, and now he's afraid to open himself up to something new. Or maybe he just realized that a nanny from Boyle Heights isn't the kind of woman who fits with a Bel Air. Her executive. Don't diminish yourself," her mother admonished. "Your worth isn't in your address or your bank account. It's in your character." Lucy tried to find another job during those days, but without references, she couldn't ask Gregory without explaining the situation. Doors closed. Financial reality soon forced her to consider returning, even with all the emotional complexity involved. Meanwhile, in the Montgomery apartment, Peter had become withdrawn again. He hadn't reverted to complete mutism, but his sentences were short, his smiles rare. Gregory observed the change with growing concern. "Son, what's going on?" he asked one night, sitting on the edge of Peter's bed. "You seem sad. When is Lucy coming back?" "Soon," Gregory replied automatically, though he wasn't sure. "She just needed a few days to sort out personal matters." You fought with her, Peter stated, not as a question. I saw you in the office. She left crying. Gregory didn't know that. He hadn't noticed Lucy crying after that formal conversation. Guilt washed over him. It wasn't a fight, son. Then why did she leave? Why don't you want her to have dinner with us anymore? Why did you get angry when I talked about her? The questions came in a torrent, accumulated over days of silent observation. Gregory sighed, not knowing how to explain feelings he couldn't even organize himself. It's complicated, Peter. No, it's not, the boy replied with the brutal frankness of children. You like her. She likes you. I like both of you. What's complicated about that? The simplicity of the child's logic left Gregory speechless. On Saturday, he decided to take Peter to the same park where everything had begun, the place where, months ago, the boy had spoken for the first time in years. He hoped the visit would help improve his son's mood. It was a sunny morning, the park full of families enjoying the weekend. Peter walked beside his father, without his former enthusiasm, looking disconsolately at the playground equipment. How about the merry-go-round? Gregory suggested, pointing to the toy that had been so special. Peter shrugged. Okay. As they approached, however, something captured the boy's attention. A familiar figure was sitting on a nearby bench, reading a book, curly hair tied in an unpretentious bun, simple jeans, sneakers. Lucy! Peter's shout cut through the air, startling both Gregory and Lucy herself, who looked up, astonished. Before any adult could react, Peter ran towards her, throwing himself into her arms with abandon. You're back. I knew you'd come back. His voice overflowed with joy. Lucy hugged him tightly, trying to conceal her own emotion. Hi, Peter. What a coincidence to find you here. Gregory approached slowly, clearly uncomfortable. Lucy, I didn't expect to see you. I came for a walk to clear my head, she explained, standing up from the bench, still with Peter clinging to her waist. It's a great place to think. An awkward silence settled between the adults, filled only by Peter's sudden chatter, who seemed to have regained all his energy. Lucy, you won't believe it. Theo from my class brought a hamster to show the class, and the teacher let me hold it. And I got a good grade in math, and... The boy's animation was contagious, his face illuminated by the genuine joy of reuniting with the person who meant so much to him. The contrast with his apathetic behavior of the past few days was striking. Sounds like you had a week full of news, Lucy replied, smiling. Yeah, but... Peter hesitated, looking at his father. It wasn't the same without you. Things are weird at home. Gregory cleared his throat, trying to soften the comment. Peter missed you. I missed you too, Lucy admitted, looking directly at the boy, though her words carried a broader meaning. Are you coming back to our house? Peter asked hopefully. Before Lucy could answer, a sharp voice interrupted the moment. What a touching scene. Christine was there, impeccably dressed as always, dark sunglasses partially covering her face. None of them had noticed her approach. Christine, Gregory greeted dryly. What are you doing here? Morning walk, she replied with a cold smile. What a coincidence, isn't it? All in the same place where the misunderstanding began. Peter clung tighter to Lucy, tense with the presence of his father's ex-girlfriend. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Gregory replied firmly. And we don't need to relive that now. On the contrary, Christine retorted, removing her glasses to face them. I think it's the perfect time to clarify things, especially now that I've had time to reflect on the manipulations that occurred. Manipulations, Gregory repeated, irritation growing in his voice. Let's be honest, Gregory, Miss Sterling saw an opportunity and seized it. A simple nanny seducing a vulnerable widowed executive? It's a classic. That's ridiculous, Gregory protested. Is it? Then explain the accidental meeting in the park today. What are the chances? Lucy, who had remained silent, decided to speak up. It wasn't a planned meeting. I come here frequently. Christine laughed disdainfully. Of course you do. Coincidentally in the same park where you miraculously made Peter speak. Very convenient. Enough, Christine, Gregory warned. I won't allow you to speak to Lucy like that or upset Peter. Don't you see what's happening? She tricked you, Gregory. Tricked all of us. The only person who was tricking was you. Peter's clear, firm voice surprised everyone. The boy had let go of Lucy, and now faced Christine directly, fearless. You always said I was weird. that I was a little crazy. Peter, I never... Christine tried to defend herself. You said you were going to send me to a school far from home. You told Dad I needed discipline and structure. The words poured out, as if the boy was finally releasing a dam of pent-up grievances. And you said Lucy only took care of me for money, and that she was tricking Dad. Gregory looked at his son, shocked. Peter, when did you hear these things? Always. She talked when she thought I was sleeping or playing in my room. But I heard everything. Peter turned to Lucy with watery eyes. That's why I got scared when she said you were leaving. I thought she would succeed in making you go like she wanted. A small audience had formed around them, other families in the park discreetly observing the unfolding drama. Christine, realizing this, tried to regain her composure. This is absurd. These are the imaginations of a disturbed child, she said, lowering her voice. Gregory, you're not going to believe this, are you? I always took care of both of you. Gregory looked from Christine to Peter, then to Lucy. On his son's face he saw only sincerity and relief at finally expressing what he had held in for so long. On Lucy's compassion and concern, on Christine's only calculation and controlled desperation. I believe my son, he finally replied, and everything he said confirms what I already suspected. You never truly cared about Peter, or what was best for him. You can't be serious, Christine hissed. You're going to choose the word of a child and a housekeeper over mine. Think of your reputation, Gregory, what people will say. I don't care what they'll say. I care about the truth. Gregory placed his hand on his son's shoulder. And the truth is, you never accepted Peter as part of my life. You saw him as an obstacle. This is defamation. I'll sue you, and this... Christine shot a venomous glare at Lucy, unable to complete the sentence. Do what you think is best, Gregory replied calmly, but please get out of our lives now. Christine looked around, noticing the disapproving glances of the families watching the scene. She adjusted her designer bag on her shoulder, regaining her elegant posture. You'll regret this, Gregory. When you realize you were manipulated, it will be too late. With one last icy look, she turned and walked away along the park path, high heels marking the rhythm of her exit. A momentary silence fell over the three. Peter was the first to break it. She's not coming back, is she, Dad? Kaz, no, son. She's not. The boy seemed relieved, turning to Lucy. And you? Are you coming back to our house? Lucy hesitated, looking at Gregory. There were so many unspoken things between them, so many obstacles still to overcome. Peter, Gregory began, crouching down to his son's level. I need to talk to Lucy. Adult talk. Can you go play on the merry-go-round for a bit? Stay where I can see you. Okay, the boy reluctantly agreed. Before walking away, he hugged Lucy again. You're my second mom, he whispered, before running to the toy. Those simple, profound words moved Lucy. When she turned to Gregory, she saw that he too was emotional. Lucy, he began, hesitant. These days without you have been difficult for both of us. For me too, she admitted. I realized I made a terrible mistake. I let my insecurities and perhaps a bit of the poison Christine planted make me push you away. Gregory ran a hand through his hair, a gesture he always made when nervous. The truth is, I fell in love with you. The declaration, simple and direct, caught Lucy off guard. Her heart raced. Gregory, You don't have to say anything now, he interrupted gently. I know I complicated everything, that I probably hurt you. I just wanted you to know that if you want to come back, not just as a nanny, but as something more serious, we would very much like that. Lucy looked at Peter, playing happily on the merry-go-round, and then back at Gregory. There was sincerity in his eyes, vulnerability, hope. I fell in love with you too, she finally admitted. But I'm scared. Our worlds are so different. You're a successful executive. I'm a nanny from the working-class neighborhood. People will talk, Judge. Let them talk, Gregory replied firmly. What matters is what we've built together, what we feel. As Peter said so simply, I like you, you like me, he likes both of us. The rest are just complications we create. Lucy smiled, remembering her mother's words. My mother told me something similar. She seems like a wise woman. Gregory took Lucy's hands in his. What do you say? Can we try? This time for real, without fear, without walls. At that moment, Peter came running back, breathless from spinning so much. Are you done with the adult talk? Can I come back? The two laughed, the tense moment broken by childish sincerity. Yes, "We're done," Gregory replied, still holding Lucy's hands. Peter looked from one to the other, noticing something different. A wide smile formed on his face. "Are you two dating now?" "Please say yes." Lucy and Gregory exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. "We're starting something new," Lucy replied carefully. "Yes," Peter cheered, jumping with joy. "I knew it. I knew you liked each other. Can I tell Mrs. Zelma? She'll be so happy." The boy's spontaneity and joy were contagious. Gregory laughed, putting his son on his shoulders. "You can tell whoever you want, champ. We have nothing to hide." As they walked home together, the three of them like an improvised but genuine family, Lucy felt a mixture of joy and apprehension. The path ahead would not be easy. There would be judgments, obstacles, differences to overcome. But looking at Peter chattering animatedly on his father's shoulder, and at Gregory, who smiled at her with promises in his eyes, she knew it was worth trying. The relationship between Lucy and Gregory began with the caution of those who know the complexities of the real world. In the first few months they maintained public discretion, not out of shame, but to protect Peter from any external turbulence, and to give their relationship time to strengthen before facing the inevitable social judgments. Lucy insisted on leaving her nanny position, a decision Gregory reluctantly accepted. "I can't be your employee and your girlfriend at the same time," she explained firmly. "We need equality in this relationship, even if the world sees differences between us." A week after the confrontation in the park, Gregory appeared unannounced at Lucy's small apartment in Boyle Heights. It was the first time he had visited the lower middle-class neighborhood where she lived. The contrast with his penthouse in Bel Air couldn't be more evident. The building without an elevator, the narrow streets, the vibrant but simple local commerce. Mrs. Janet answered the door, surprised to find the elegant executive standing there, visibly out of place in his expensive suit. "Good afternoon, madam," Gregory greeted politely. "I'm Gregory Montgomery, Peter's father." "Is Lucy in?" "I know very well who you are," Mrs. Janet replied, assessing him with the experienced gaze of someone who had seen many bosses in her life as a housekeeper. "Come in. Lucy is finishing getting ready." The apartment was small but impeccably clean and organized. Family photos adorned the walls. Lucy as a child, her high school graduation, moments with her mother. A modest bookshelf displayed books on early childhood education and psychology, revealing Lucy's investment in her professional development. "Would you like some coffee, Mr. Montgomery?" Mrs. Janet offered, watching him examine the environment. "Please call me Gregory." "And yes, thank you." Sitting in the small living room, with cups of strong coffee served in simple but well-maintained crockery, Gregory and Mrs. Janet sized each other up. "So," the lady began, getting straight to the point, "did you come to apologize to my daughter?" The frankness caught Gregory by surprise. "Yes, among other things." "What other things?" "I want to ask for a chance. For real this time." Mrs. Janet nodded slowly. "My daughter suffered, you know. In that big house of yours, being treated as invisible by that woman, falling in love with the boss, loving a boy who isn't hers." Her eyes were direct, without submission. "And then when things finally seemed to be settling, you pushed her away." "I made a mistake," Gregory admitted. "I let insecurities and prejudices influence me. But I'm here to fix that if she allows me." "Do you know what you're asking for? My daughter isn't a toy for you to amuse yourself with while you look for someone your level." "I never thought of her like that," Gregory protested, genuinely offended. Perhaps not consciously, but the world has its unwritten rules, doesn't it? Executives don't marry nannies. Not in real-life fairy tales. Before Gregory could respond, Lucy entered the room. She was simply dressed in jeans and a blouse, hair loose, so different from the uniformed nanny he had known, but equally beautiful in her naturalness. "Gregory?" Surprise was evident in her voice. "What are you doing here?" He stood up, suddenly nervous. "I needed to see you." "Talk in person." Mrs. Janet discreetly stood up. "I'll let you talk. I have to go to the market anyway." Before leaving, she gave her daughter a meaningful look, half warning, half approval. When they were alone, an awkward silence briefly hung between them. "Your apartment is very cozy," Gregory commented, trying to break the ice. "It's simple, but it's ours," Lucy replied, a defensive tone in her voice, "built with my and my mother's honest work." I didn't mean to imply anything different, he hastened to clarify. I just meant it has personality. Life, different from my cold and impersonal house. Lucy relaxed a little, motioning to the sofa for them to sit down again. How is Peter? Asking for you all the time. The new nanny isn't bad, but... Gregory smiled slightly. She's not you. I miss him. He's not the only one who misses you, Gregory confessed, meeting her eyes. Lucy, I came here to ask for forgiveness. For believing Christine's manipulations, for trying to push you away, for being afraid of what I was feeling. She watched him in silence, waiting for him to continue. I also came to say that I'm ready for us to face whatever comes, without walls, without excuses, without fear of what others will think. Gregory, Lucy began carefully, it's not that simple. Our worlds are completely different. You live in a penthouse in Bel Air, I in a 2-bedroom apartment in Boyle Heights. You frequent Michelin-starred restaurants, I the corner bar. How will we reconcile these realities? By building our own reality, he replied simply. We don't have to live in my world or yours. We can create something new, something that is ours. Lucy smiled slightly. That's beautiful in theory, but in practice, what will your partners, your family say when you introduce your ex-nanny as your girlfriend? That I'm the luckiest man in the world for having found someone who brought joy back to our home, who made me see what truly matters. What if that's not what they say? Gregory shrugged. Then that's their problem, not ours. Lucy sighed, the desire to believe battling with realism. I don't want to be the poor girl, the millionaire rescued from poverty. I don't want to be financially dependent on you. I want to maintain my autonomy, my identity. And I don't want a dependent woman, he retorted. I want a partner, someone who challenges me, who makes me grow as a human being, as you already have. Her eyes shone with suppressed tears. I'm scared, Gregory. Scared to give myself fully and then discover it was just a phase, a curiosity. He took her hands in his. And I'm scared of letting go of the best thing that has happened in my life since Peter's birth. His voice was laden with emotion. I'm just asking for a chance. To show that this is real, lasting, true. In that small apartment in Boyle Heights, so far from Gregory's corporate and luxurious world, they began to outline the foundations of what would be their relationship. It wasn't an easy conversation. They spoke of fears, prejudices, cultural and social differences. They established boundaries and expectations. Lucy was clear. She would maintain her financial independence, continue working, now as an educational coordinator in a preschool, and the relationship would progress at a pace that respected their different backgrounds. Gregory agreed to everything, proposing only one condition, that she not let pride prevent her from accepting happiness. The following months were filled with adaptation and discoveries. Gregory got to know Lucy's world, Sunday backyard barbecues with extended family, neighborhood street parties, local market snacks. She, in turn, was gradually introduced to his universe. Corporate dinners, art exhibitions, social circles of the Los Angeles elite. There were difficult moments, of course. Sour looks from old friends of Christine, veiled comments about financial interest, even a malicious article in a gossip column. Peter, with the disconcerting wisdom of children, once asked why people made funny faces when they saw Lucy with them in fancy restaurants. Because some people judge others by appearance or money, not by heart, Gregory explained honestly. That's very silly, Peter concluded, making them both laugh. The boy blossomed with the new family dynamic. His school performance improved, his social interaction expanded, and the former speech therapist confirmed what was already evident. Peter was completely recovered from the trauma that had silenced him for years. He needed to feel safe again, the professional explained during the last consultation. Safe to be a child, to feel, to express himself without fear. To the surprise of many, but not of those who truly knew them, the relationship between Gregory and Lucy grew in depth and stability. After a year together, he proposed they live in the same house, not in the luxurious Bel Air apartment, which held too many difficult memories, nor in the small Boyle Heights apartment, but in a new home. They bought an airy and comfortable house in Silver Lake, neither luxurious ostentation nor precarious simplicity, a middle ground that symbolized the balance they had built between their worlds. Lucy, now an educational coordinator at the school where she worked, maintained her financial independence as she had promised. though she accepted that there would always be a natural disparity between her resources and Gregory's. The important thing, as they discovered, was not financial equality, but mutual respect and valuing what each brought to the relationship. 2.5 years after their reunion in the park, they celebrated a simple wedding in the garden of their new home. Peter, now 10 years old, talkative and confident, was the ring-bearer, proudly carrying the rings. "Finally, we're a real family," he announced during the ceremony, drawing emotional smiles from the guests, an eclectic mix of executives in expensive suits, public school teachers, neighbors from Boyle Heights, and friends from Silver Lake. Mrs. Janet, elegant in her turquoise dress, watched her daughter with unconcealed pride. Beside her, Mrs. Zelma, who had become an inseparable friend since the Bel Air penthouse days, discreetly wiped away tears. During the reception, an unexpected presence caused a brief moment of tension. Christine appeared, apparently to congratulate the newlyweds. She was impeccable as always, but there was a new hardness in her features, a poorly disguised bitterness. "I came to wish you happiness," she said with a tense smile. "I see you got what you wanted, Lucy." Before the bride could answer, Peter approached, looking directly at his father's ex-girlfriend. "Hi, Aunt Christine. Glad you came to see our happy family," he said with the disconcerting sincerity he always had. "Now I have a mum who really likes me." The cruel simplicity of the child's observation made Christine pale. Unable to formulate an adequate response, she mumbled an excuse and quickly withdrew, leaving behind the couple and the boy who, united, had proven stronger than her manipulations. 6 months after the wedding, on a sunny Sunday morning, Peter ran into his parents' room, jumping on the bed with the inexhaustible energy of pre-adolescence. "Wake up! Wake up! I need to tell you something super important." Gregory and Lucy slowly awoke, accustomed to their son's morning exuberance. "What is it, Peter?" Gregory asked, feigning annoyance but unable to hide his smile. "I've been thinking," the boy began, sitting between them with seriousness. "I think I need a brother. Or sister, either one." The couple exchanged surprised glances. "Really?" Lucy replied, adjusting herself in bed. "And why do you think that?" "Because I want to teach someone to play on the merry-go-round," Peter explained as if it were obvious. "The same one from the park where I started talking again. It would be like a complete cycle, you know." The peculiar but profound logic touched both their hearts. Lucy and Gregory had already discussed the possibility of having a child, but had not yet made a concrete decision. "That's quite an idea, son," Gregory commented, ruffling Peter's hair. "We'll think seriously about it." "Cool," the boy cheered, already jumping out of bed with his mission accomplished. "I'm going for a walk with Thunder." When Peter left the room, followed by the caramel poodle Gregory had finally allowed him to adopt for his 9th birthday, the couple looked at each other with complicity. "What do you think?" Gregory asked, caressing Lucy's face. "I think he's right," she replied with a smile. "It would be a complete cycle, from silence to multiplied joy." "The Montgomery Sterling family expanded," Gregory joked, kissing her softly. "Sterling Montgomery," Lucy corrected with a mischievous smile, as she always did when she wanted to tease him. Embraced in their Sunday bed, listening in the distance to the dog's animated barks and Peter's carefree laughter, they made plans for the future, a future built on the solid foundations of respect, acceptance, and the genuine love they had achieved, against all odds. Outside, the Los Angeles sun illuminated the rooftops of Silver Lake, a neighborhood that had become the perfect balance point between their two worlds, not so high that they lost perspective, nor so low that they couldn't dream. The exact place where an improbable family, born from a casual encounter between a widowed executive, his pain-silent son, and a nanny with a huge heart, had found the recipe for true happiness, constant presence, mutual respect and unconditional love. And so, day after day, word after word, the boy who once lost his voice now filled the house with stories, while his parents, biological and by heart, wrote their own story together, proving that real-life fairy tales are not about castles or fortunes, but about people who have the courage to tear down walls and the wisdom to value what truly matters. The end of the story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Peter, Gregory, and Lucy has touched your hearts. To follow more emotional narratives like this, we've prepared a special playlist that explores family bonds and second chances in life. Find it by clicking the link on the left. If this story about the power of love and true presence moved you, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of human feelings. Share in the comments if you have ever witnessed the transformative power of a loving presence in someone's life. Your experiences inspire us to continue telling stories that make a difference. Until next time.